Good afternoon. I'm David Bone, and today we're going to be talking about gun control. Politicians often refer to common sense gun control, but I'm going to be discussing the problems with this so-called common sense gun control. To understand the concept of gun control, we must first go back to where it was first conceived in the 1960s. Senator Howard Metzenbaum was an Ohio senator who was one of the first advocates of gun control. He said, until we can ban all of them, talking about firearms, then we might as well ban none of them. This is because the concept of modern gun control revolves around the theory that less guns means less gun crime. But he said that until we can ban all guns, we might as well ban none of them, or it will be useless. And this is one of the strongest gun control advocates from when it was started. Modern times, our President Obama has talked about copying Australia's gun control policies, which was started in 1997. I'm sorry, I got my numbers backwards. This ban outlawed assault weapons, or semi-automatic guns, and repeating shotguns in Australia. Now, the problem with implementing a ban such as this in the United States is that in Australia at the time there were approximately 3 million firearms, and the ban would apply to only about 700,000. This would be doable on that small of a scale. However, in the United States there are well over 300 million firearms, and extracting all the assault rifles and repeating rifles would still leave approximately 200 million firearms. That is a long way from what the gun control advocates say would be necessary. We look conversely in the United States, where in 1994 a ban on assault weapons expired, and we see that the violent crime rate had been holding pretty steady. And then when the ban expired and assault weapons returned to civilian hands, violent crime decreased. This is sourced from the Federal Bureau of Justice Statistics. Now, the problem with a weapons ban is not just that violent crime will either continue or not. That is not the primary issue. And the issue that many people will go back to on this is that the Second Amendment is there to protect us from tyranny. Under communist regimes in the last century, such as the Soviet Union, North Korea, China, Afghanistan, and other Eastern European countries, there were 94 million murders that took place by the government. However, there were only 58 million homicides in that century. That means that government outreach nearly doubled that of homicides. And that number is not including numbers from Nazi Germany and genocides. That is only communist regimes. The Second Amendment reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Now, there's been much debate on what this amendment means. Some people have said that it is referring to a militia, and there's been debate on what a militia means. Is a militia organized by the government, or is it a group of civilians that merely come together to defend their liberties and property? What does it mean being necessary to the security of a free state? Is it talking about merely repelling foreign attacks, or is it talking about being a deterrent for tyranny? But I think the key to this statement is kept in the next paragraph, or next 2 lines. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. It is the people's right. It is not organized by the government. It's not like the National Guard, but it is that of the people's to keep and bear arms. And a lot of times gun control advocates who advocate for this common sense gun control will say, well, it applies to a certain point, maybe just to hunting rifles or just to certain types of firearms is what the right applies to. However, this amendment clearly says it shall not be infringed, so that no part of it should be torn away. To get another understanding of this amendment, I would go to what Samuel Adams said. I'm sure you all recognize Samuel Adams as one of the founding fathers, but he said, quote, that the said Constitution shall never be constructed to authorize Congress to infringe the just liberty of the press or the right of conscience, or to prevent the people of the United States who are peaceful citizens from keeping their own arms. So, one of the Founding Fathers is telling us that this amendment isn't just to protect the government militia, but it is that to protect the people, and that no right way, that it would not be right for the government to remove the right of the people to bear arms. Next slide. Okay. All right. And I'm just going to leave you all with a final thought by Benjamin Franklin. He said that those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety. And I think that best sums up what gun control is. We would be giving up, relinquishing our essential liberty, that to bear arms, that to defend ourselves, our rights, and our families and our property in order to gain just a little security. And Benjamin Franklin, one of the greatest minds of his day, said that if we would make that trade, we would deserve neither. Thank you.